On a quiet farmstead in rural Bavaria, in March of 1922, the Gruber family lived an ordinary, if somewhat uneasy life. Andreas and Cecilia Gruber, their daughter Victoria Gabriel and her two children Cecilia and Josef, worked the isolated Hinterkaifeck farm. The place was remote, 600 meters from the nearest road, surrounded by fields and woods. To most, it looked like any other German farm, but the Grubers had begun to notice things, strange, unsettling details that didn't add up. In the weeks before the tragedy, Andreas told neighbors that he had discovered footprints in the snow leading from the forest directly to the farm, but none leading back out. Tools went missing. Footsteps were heard in the attic when no one should have been there. The family felt watched, but they stayed, carrying on with their routines. Then on March 31st, everything changed. That evening, someone, or perhaps several people, lured 4 members of the family into the barn one by one. First Andreas, then his wife Cecilia, followed by their adult daughter Victoria, and finally little Cecilia, just 7 years old. Each was struck down with a mattock, a farm tool similar to a pickaxe. The blows were precise and brutal, crushing skulls with terrifying force. Inside the farmhouse, the killer or killers found 2 more victims, 2-year-old Joseph in his crib, and the maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had just started working at the farm that very day. Within hours, an entire household lay dead, but the horror didn't end there. Like the Hiragaya murders in Japan nearly 80 years later, the killer didn't flee immediately. Instead, they stayed in the house. For several days after the murders, neighbors noticed smoke rising from the chimney. Livestock were fed, meals were cooked and eaten. Someone lived among the dead bodies, carrying out ordinary farm chores as if nothing had happened. When neighbors finally came to check on the family days later, they uncovered the gruesome scene. 6 lives extinguished and no sign of the murderer. The investigation that followed was exhaustive, but it left more questions than answers. Police discovered the barn murders had been carried out methodically, and the bodies covered with straw or cloth afterward, almost ritualistically. Money was left untouched, suggesting robbery wasn't the motive. The brutality seemed deeply personal, but who could hate the Grubers enough to wipe them all out? Suspicion fell on several people. Some suspected Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a neighbor rumored to be the father of little Josef. His behavior after the crime was odd. He seemed disturbingly calm when viewing the bodies. Others speculated that Victoria's estranged husband, missing since World War I, had returned. Still others whispered about drifters or bandits. Yet none of the theories ever stuck. Forensic science at the time was limited. The murder weapon was never definitively identified, though a blood-stained mattock was found years later on the property. Autopsies revealed the victims died instantly, except for young Cecilia, who had torn out clumps of her own hair in terror before succumbing to her injuries. That detail alone haunted investigators. As decades passed, the Hinterkaifeck murders took on a mythic quality. The idea of someone hiding in the farm, watching the family, waiting to strike, then calmly living in their house afterward, is almost too eerie to comprehend. In the 1990s, German police reopened the case using modern profiling techniques. They even named a likely suspect, though they never publicly released the name out of respect for living relatives. The conclusion? The killer was almost certainly someone the family knew. Someone trusted enough to approach, but cold enough to slaughter them without mercy. Today, the Hinterkaifeck farm is gone. The buildings were torn down in the 1920s. A small memorial marks the site, a quiet stone cross in a field. But the story lingers, retold again and again. Not just as a murder mystery, but as a chilling reminder of how darkness can creep into the most ordinary places. Because what unsettles us isn't only the brutality, it's the thought of those days afterward. Smoke rising from the chimney, animals fed, meals cooked. Someone walked among the dead, unbothered, comfortable. A killer who didn't just destroy a family, but then lived with their silence. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain unsolved, and perhaps they always will.